Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're venturing into, well, a pretty mind-bending idea. It comes from philosopher Robert Bauer, particularly his concept of informatica. We're talking about full spectrum information.
Right.
Think of it like peeling back the layers of reality to see this huge ocean of information frequencies all around us, stuff that's often working way below our conscious radar.
Exactly. And Bauer's philosophy, especially in the metrics and the matrix, it suggests these interconnected fields, these frequencies, they aren't just background noise.
Okay.
They actively shape how we perceive things,
hmm
influence our interactions, and really, they make up the very fabric of the reality we experience.
So the world we see and hear isn't the whole picture.
Not even close. It's our specific interpretation of this underlying symphony of frequencies, as Bauer might frame it.
Okay, let's try and tune into that idea then. For this deep dive, we've pulled together info looking at this across a pretty fascinating range. From how our own senses pick up the world to the invisible waves powering our phones and Wi-Fi, and even the frequencies just present in nature itself.
Yeah.
So our mission today is basically to unpack some of these key frequency ranges, try to understand why they matter, a new perspective on this information matrix we're all kind of swimming in.
And like Bauer emphasizes, our conscious experience is just one slice, one way of interacting with this huge informational landscape.
Right.
So by understanding how these different frequency ranges work and, interact, we can maybe start to appreciate just how rich and complex the underlying reality is. A reality built on information, basically.
Okay, let's start with us, our senses. They're our most direct connection to this frequency world, right?
Mm.
Take hearing. Most people know the typical range. It's something like 20 to 20,000 hertz. And it's kind of amazing that the whole universe of music, from thumping bass to high notes, it all fits in that band.
And what's remarkable isn't just the range itself, but the sheer diversity of information packed in there.
Also,
Well, different frequencies, as Bauer would probably point out, they carry different informational signatures, like the low rumble of a bass drum. That gives you a very different feeling, different information than a high violin note.
okay, yeah.
And, as our hearing range naturally shrinks with age, it's almost like losing access to parts of that information spectrum.
Then there's sight. This is where the numbers get crazy. We're talking frequencies between 430 and 750 trillion hertz.
Trillion, yeah. That's staggering.
And this incredibly tiny slice of the whole electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
That's what gives us our entire visual world, all the colors.
That's it. From the lower, slower frequencies we perceive as red up to the faster ones we see as violet.
Wow. It really makes you wonder about everything just outside that range that we're completely blind to.
Absolutely. And if you think about Bauer's idea of the metrics, our visual system is like a super specialized receiver, right? Tuned only to this very specific band.
So our biology limits what reality we perceive.
In a way, yes. It shapes our understanding within this much broader information field that exists.
Okay, now touch. That feels different. Less like waves, more like contact.
You'd think so. But surprisingly, our sources say our sense of touch is actually most sensitive to vibrations, specifically in the 50 to 1,000 hertz range.
Really? Vibrations?
Yeah. And get this, different receptors in our skin are specialized for different parts of that frequency range.
Huh. So our skin is kind of listening to vibrations?
That's a great way to put it. It's like our bodies are designed to pull frequency-based info, even from what seems like just mechanical interaction. Our skin is like a tuned instrument, different sensors picking up different frequencies.
Allowing us to feel textures?
Exactly, all encoded as variations in that tactile frequency spectrum.
Okay, what about smell and taste? They feel so chemical.
They are, initially, but frequency seems to creep in there too.
Yeah.
For smell, we learned that certain brainwaves, theta, beta, and especially high-frequency gamma waves.
In the piriform cortex, right.
Yes. They're vital for correctly identifying odors.
Why the high frequencies, the gamma waves?
Well, that seems to be key. Think of them as the brain's super-fast processing unit for smells. It ties into Bauer's idea of information richness, maybe.
Okay.
The subtle differences between smells, between molecules, they need incredibly fast processing to tell them apart. These rapid gamma oscillations let the brain quickly analyze those complex signatures. It's like a high-speed pattern recognition just for scent.
Wow. And taste. That's even weirder. Apparently, you can stimulate the tongue with electrical currents between 50 and 1,000 hertz.
And produce different taste sensations.
Yeah, so it's not just the sweet, sour, salty chemicals. The frequency of the signal itself matters for what we taste.
It really points to the bioelectric side of our senses, doesn't it? How the nervous system translates different inputs, chemical, sure, but maybe modulated by electrical frequencies into our subjective experience. Taste might be more complex than just chemical detection.
It seems like it. Okay, last sense here, temperature. That feels like a slow change, not really a wave.
Right, not like sound.
But the sources mentioned temperature fluctuations do have frequency patterns, and high-frequency temperature changes are linked to atmospheric turbulence. How does that work?
It's fascinating, and it fits with Bauer's idea of interconnected fields. Even something seemingly smooth like temperature change has an underlying frequency structure.
So faster changes mean?
Faster, high-frequency changes often indicate smaller, more localized air movements, while the slower, low-frequency shifts reflect those bigger, broader atmospheric changes. It's like the atmosphere itself is carrying information coded in temperature frequency.
Okay, so our bodies are amazing biological receivers tuned to specific frequencies for our immediate world.
Definitely.
But then we've built all this technology operating on totally different frequencies, the communication bands, radio frequencies, for instance, 30 kilohertz up to 300 gigahertz.
It's an absolutely massive range.
And it covers everything, basic radio, cell phones, complex radar. It's like this invisible web of signals buzzing all around us.
It is. And as Bauer might highlight, how we allocate and manage these frequencies is, well, it's fundamental to our modern infrastructure.
Right.
Each band have properties making it good for certain things. Lower frequencies travel further, higher ones carry more data.
Yeah.
It's a carefully managed system trying to avoid interference while carrying all that information.
Then there's TV broadcasting, VHF, UHF bands. We just flip channels, but each one is a distinct slice of that electromagnetic spectrum carrying pictures and sound.
Exactly. And you mentioned other bands too, like subband T, midband, hyperband.
Yeah, what are those for?
They're often further subdivisions, maybe for specific things like cable TV distribution or used differently in certain regions. It's all part of that structured allocation. Bauer's ideas hint at organizing a huge amount of media within the limited spectrum resource.
And Wi-Fi, obviously. We use it every day. 2.4 and 5 gigahertz are standard.
Well, as we all know.
But there's even higher stuff now, like WiGig at 45 gigahertz. What's the deal with going higher?
Well, the big advantage of higher frequencies like 45 gigahertz is bandwidth. Potentially much faster data speeds, which you need for streaming HD video or big file transfers.
But there's a catch.
Always. Higher frequencies have shorter ranges and get blocked more easily by walls, by obstacles. So it's this constant engineering balancing act. Speed versus range versus reliability, all within the spectrum's limits.
The sources also brought up military applications. This phrase, full spectrum dominance. Sounds intense. What does it mean frequency-wise?
In military terms, yeah, it's about controlling the information landscape, just like Bauer discusses. It means being able to use and control essentially every useful part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
For what?
For your own side's communication, surveillance, electronic warfare, while also stopping the enemy from doing the same. And that now extends deep into cyber warfare too, using frequencies for network operations, gathering signals intelligence.
Wow. And way above us, satellites are using their own bands, L, C, Ku, Ka.
Right, for everything from GPS to satellite internet.
Are those bands like different lanes on a highway in space?
That's a good analogy. Each band has pros and cons. L-band for GPS penetrates weather well because it's lower frequency. Ku and Ka offer much higher bandwidth for internet, but things like rain can affect the signal more easily. The choice depends entirely on the job it needs to do.
And looking ahead, 5G networks are using a mix of low, mid, and high bands. Why not just pick one?
It's about flexibility. The low bands give wide coverage, good penetration through walls. Mid bands are a balance of speed and coverage. And the high bands, the millimeter waves, offer super fast speeds, but mostly in dense areas over short distances.
So 5G uses them all.
It intelligently switches between them, trying to give you the best connection for what you need, whether that's wide coverage for IoT devices or high speed for, say, autonomous vehicles someday. It caters to very different needs using the whole spectrum toolkit.
But it's not just our tech interacting with frequencies. Nature itself is full of it. Like the light spectrum, again, infrared to near UV. That's critical for life, right? Photosynthesis, vitamin D.
Absolutely fundamental. Different wavelengths, different frequencies of light, carry different energy, drive different chemical reactions. Life depends on that full spectrum interaction.
We mentioned the military angle with full spectrum dominance, but that idea also applies directly to electronic warfare, right? Using every bit of the spectrum for advantage.
For sure. Modern military ops rely heavily on controlling that spectrum for intelligence, communication, navigation, jamming the enemy. EW covered jamming radar, disrupting communications, sending fake signals all across different frequencies to get an edge. It's pure information warfare, aligning with Bauer's ideas.
Beyond just signals, this broader idea of full spectrum information, maybe how Bauer sees it, it's about pulling together data from everywhere at once.
Exactly. Bowers Informatica stresses that interconnectedness. So full spectrum information here means gathering, processing, integrating data from all relevant sources, senses, signals, environmental readings, you name it, to get a truly complete picture.
Moving beyond just isolated bits of data.
Yes, seeing the whole pattern that emerges when you consider information from all these different frequency domains together.
We talked about atmospheric temperature frequencies earlier. The link between high frequency changes and turbulence comes up again here in environmental interactions.
Yeah, it really shows how even chaotic systems can have underlying frequency patterns. Those rapid temperature shifts are basically the signature of turbulence, giving us data to understand and model how the atmosphere behaves.
And when you stop and think, so many basic technologies depend on radio waves. Simple AM radio, but also sophisticated radar for weather or planes. It's incredibly versatile.
It really is. Radio frequencies travel well, interact with lots of materials, makes them indispensable for broadcasting, detection, communication, just so many things.
Even something routine like Wi-Fi. It uses that 5 megahertz channel spacing. Why?
Standardization. It's crucial so that all our different devices can talk without stepping on each other's signals. Dividing the band into these neat channels lets lots of devices work nearby without causing chaos, smooths the flow of information.
And TV broadcasting bands, the way they're divided up, that created the whole structure for mass media we just take for granted.
It was foundational. That structured allocation allowed multiple channels to broadcast over areas without massive interference. It literally shaped the media landscape.
So, okay, all these different frequencies, biological, technological, they have real effects, like the gamma brain waves for smell we mentioned, a specific frequency tied directly to perception.
It's a great example. It shows how the brain uses rhythmic electrical patterns, specific frequencies, to encode and decode information. Gamma seems especially important for binding sensory details into a complete perception.
And that taste thing, different electrical frequencies causing different taste sensations, that really hammers home frequency as fundamental to how we experience the world.
It suggests our experience isn't just about the type of stimulus, but how it's frequency coded and processed by our nervous system. Opens up some really interesting possibilities for maybe even modulating senses using frequency.
The military advantage from controlling the electromagnetic spectrum, you said, is huge. Secure comms, jamming. It's an invisible battlefield.
Absolutely. Spectrum dominance, a core part of that full spectrum awareness Bauer talks about, gives a massive strategic edge. Better awareness, command, disruption of the enemy.
And the rise of cyber ops and signals intelligence within this, it just shows how vital comprehensive information control is now.
In our world, information is power. Being able to operate across that whole digital and electromagnetic range is critical for security, for staying competitive.
On a brighter note, though, the full light spectrum has therapeutic uses, which makes sense given how tied we are biologically to sunlight.
Definitely. Different light wavelengths regulate sleep cycles, mood, vitamin synthesis. Light therapy just uses specific frequencies from that spectrum to help with various health issues.
And the simple fact that light frequency is color. That's a beautiful, constant reminder of the link between frequency and our subjective reality.
It's a direct translation. Electromagnetic frequency becomes the colors painting our world, interpreted by our brain.
Even those atmospheric temperature patterns linked to climate and weather shows how large-scale environmental frequencies impact our daily lives significantly.
Yeah, understanding those frequency components and temperature data is key for accurate climate models, better weather prediction. Analyzing those frequency signatures has very practical uses.
And the structured allocation of frequencies for TV, for Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
that's the invisible framework holding up our modern communication world.
Essential. That organization prevents signal chaos, lets countless services function reliably side by side.
It's also really interesting to think about emerging therapies using specific frequencies, like the electrical taste stimulation or sensory stimulation for neurological issues. Seems like early days for that.
It feels like it. It's a rapidly growing field, though. The potential to target specific neural pathways or senses with precisely tuned frequencies. It could really change how we treat some conditions. Offers new paths for therapy.
So bringing it all together, this idea of full spectrum information processing, integrating data from all these frequency domains to make better decisions. That feels like the ultimate goal here, tying back to Bauer's vision.
I think so. It's about harnessing that interconnected information, realizing that insights from one frequency domain can shed light on others. It leads to a more complete, more nuanced understanding of complex systems. Better problem solving, better decisions.
Okay, so our senses are constantly doing this integration job, right? Building a coherent picture from different frequency inputs. Hearing, for example, 20 to 20,000 hertz, pressure waves giving us sound, speech, music.
And it's not passive detection. Our auditory system processes that info, tells sounds apart, understands speech, figures out where sound is coming from, and experience shapes how well we do that.
Vision, again, that tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum, 430 to 750 trillion hertz. Tiny, but fundamental for getting around.
And packed with information, intensity, wavelength. Our visual system turns that into shapes, colors, distance, movement, builds that 3D world in our head.
Then touch, responding to those mechanical vibrations, 50 to 1,000 hertz. Our direct physical connection, feeling texture, pressure through frequency signals.
With different receptors tuned for different frequencies within that range. That's how we tell smooth from rough, a gentle touch from a firm grip. Each has a unique vibrational signature.
Now, taste and smell, they work a bit differently at the start, you said. Taste is chemical receptors for the 5 basics.
That's right. The initial detection is chemical binding on the taste buds, not directly frequency-based like hearing or touch, although frequency might play a role in the neural signaling after detection.
And smell is similar. Chemoreceptors in the nose binding with molecules.
Yes, chemical binding first. But then, as we discussed, the brain uses those crucial neural oscillations, especially gamma frequencies, to process the signals and actually identify the specific odor accurately.
So frequency is key for the processing part of smell.
It appears so. The brain uses those oscillations, maybe like a pattern recognition system working across different frequency bands, to sort out the huge variety of smells. High-frequency gamma seems vital for doing that quickly and accurately for complex scents.
Got it. And lastly, our balance system, the vestibular system, that works at really low frequencies, right? Detecting head movements.
Yeah, very low. Roughly 0.1 to 10 hertz. It senses head position, acceleration, absolutely essential for balance and coordinating movement. It's foundational, often working totally unconsciously until something goes wrong, like getting dizzy.
Okay, so we have this amazing sensory toolkit, all tuned differently, working together. But can we actually sharpen these senses? The sources suggest we can, like for hearing, active listening, sound memory games, learning music.
Those things strengthen the neural pathways for auditory processing, help you focus, discriminate sounds better, remember them, and good cardiovascular health helps too, keeps blood flowing well to the auditory system.
And for vision, it sounds like a mix of nutrition-specific things like lutein, omega-3s, plus good habits, like the 20-20-20 rule for screen time, UV protection.
Exactly. It's about protecting the biological sensors, your eyes. Good nutrition provides building blocks. Healthy habits prevent damage from strain or radiation. Helps preserve your ability to perceive light frequencies accurately.
For touch, this was surprising. Just keeping skin hydrated helps sensitivity, and some moisturizers might actually lower the detection threshold.
Yeah. Hydrated skin is just more responsive, and certain aromatic compounds in moisturizers might interact with sensory receptors, potentially making them a bit more sensitive to pressure and vibration, kind of tuning your tactile sense.
Smell training sounds really interesting too, using essential oils regularly to retrain your sense of smell.
It can help stimulate regeneration of olfactory neurons, strengthen those connections, and there seem to be broader cognitive links to potentially helping memory. Shows how interconnected our senses and brain functions are.
For taste, basically, pay attention to flavors, keep your mouth clean, stay hydrated.
Pretty much. Helps keep taste buds healthy and responsive so you can appreciate flavors fully. Hydration is really key for taste molecules reaching the receptors.
Finally, for balance, the vestibular system. Rhythmic movement helps if it's undersensitive, gradual exposure if it's oversensitive, and yoga helps too.
Right. These techniques help recalibrate the system, improve balance, reduce dizziness. Yoga's focus on body awareness and controlled movement is great for strengthening that inner ear-brain connection.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's just incredible to think how saturated our world is with these information frequencies. From tiny skin vibrations to the massive EM spectrum powering everything.
Like Robert Bauer's Informatica suggests, just recognizing and trying to understand these underlying frequencies gives you a much richer, more nuanced picture of reality itself.
Yeah.
What we consciously perceive is really just one narrow band, one limited way of interacting with this unbelievably vast and dynamic information landscape all around us.
It really does make you think. I mean, consider that invisible world of frequencies constantly interacting with you, influencing your senses, your tech, the environment.
Yeah.
What other subtle influences might be playing out in your daily life that you're just not aware of? And maybe how could intentionally tuning in, even just metaphorically, to these different aspects of the information spectrum deepen your understanding
Mm.
of yourself and the world you're part of?
It's definitely something to ponder.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.